Hello and welcome back to another virtual movement and mobility session with Heafner Health. In today's routine, we're going to be covering what I call my healthy and strong low back routine. So I see a lot of people who have lower back pain and they come in for a variety of reasons, including it could be hip tightness, it could be some core strength issues, or just things are not moving well and aren't coordinating between the upper body and lower body. And the low back is kind of stuck in this, what could be a vulnerable area if things aren't moving right. So for the routine today, you'll need a soft tissue ball and then also a foam roller, and then meet me on your back. The first thing that you should know here, and you can put the foam roller and the ball aside, is that how the hips and the pelvis move directly impact how well the low back can function. And so what we're going to start off with here is just rolling back and forth through our hips and what I call a front and back, or an anterior and posterior tilt of the pelvis. And what this means is that it's almost like a bridge where you're drawing in your abdominals, tucking your hips under, and then raising your butt off, and then reversing the movement so that your low back comes off, and then repeating on and off through these small back and forth pelvic rotation movements. As you're rocking back and forth, feel your lower back, starting with the lower vertebrae, slowly curl and press into the mat. And then as you uncurl, you'll slowly feel the low back lift off of the mat, and then repeat the movement. Keep going on and off here. It looks like a mini bridge, and you should feel your core engaged, your hips engaged, and then also maintaining length through your upper body. Keep going here. We have 5 to 10 more repetitions. If you're having trouble visualizing this, I like to think about the pelvis as if you're looking up here at the screen and you can see I have this circular shape in my hands. If the pelvis was a full glass of wine and you tilt forward, then your low back would come off the mat, and then that full glass of wine would tip out the front. Now, and then the reverse happens, where wine would tip out the back as you roll back and then do a posterior tilt of the pelvis. This movement is very important for just basic lower back health. Let's go 3 more here. You're rocking forward, pulling backward. 2 more. And last one. And then after this one, grab onto your foam roller, bring it underneath your right hip. So you're going to be sitting on top of the foam roller. And this is one that we've done in other sessions before. From here, you're going to bring your right leg up over the top of your left in what's called a figure 4 position. So if you look down at your legs, it's in the shape of a 4. And then here, my right arm is supporting me. And then from there, shift your body weight a bit more over onto the right side, exposing those outer hip rotators. And then rock back and forth 3 to 4 inches up and down, going from the top of the glute down almost to where your sit bones are on the bottom of the glute. Everyone has different levels of tightness here and different levels of tightness side to side. What I want you to find is an area that feels like a good soreness, and then keep working back and forth through that motion. As you can see, my right arm is supporting me on the ground, helping with that back and forth roll. And then my left hand is just maintaining some pressure down to my knee, and that's going to increase the motion with this hip rotation. We're doing those big back and forth movements from top to bottom of the glute. Core is lightly drawn in. And then in just a moment, we'll add in a small variation. As you're rocking back and forth here, you can see we're going from top to bottom on the mat. Now find a point of tension. So mine is kind of right central on the glute. And then I'm going to roll more towards my right side, towards you, and then back away. So we're going onto that muscle and then backing away from it. This one will challenge your balance a little bit more on the foam roller, but it should still be all right. And then you should feel that point of tension each time that you're rocking back and forth. 3 more here, and then we'll switch sides. Last one. And then bring the foam roller underneath the left glute. Once again, starting in this position where my left hand's down and my glute is on the foam roller, left leg over the top in the figure 4 position. Roll your body over towards the left a bit more, exposing that glute. With your hand on your knee, start rolling up and down from the top of the glute, across those rotators, down to the bottom of the sit bone. And this next 45 seconds is your time to kind of explore what you're feeling today. If you had a big workout yesterday, or maybe the opposite of it where you didn't do too much yesterday, both of those reasons can cause stiffness, tightness. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing to think about in general, is that tightness can come from either too much activity, where you overdo it and you maybe need some rest, or not enough activity, where you might need to get up and do some of this sort of movement. We're still rocking back and forth. And 5 to 10 seconds, we will add in the next point where you find that tension and then roll from left to right. Finding that point of tension. I'm somewhat on my left side. I'm going to roll more towards it, and this side feels pretty intense here. And then backing away slightly. Rolling onto the glute, backing away. As I roll towards my left side more, I like to give more pressure into my knee, opening up the hip, and then I almost let off of it as I come back. We have 5 more here. Last 2. Last 1. And the next movement's easy. So we're going to be doing that same figure 4, but just without the foam roller. And this is going to allow you to take it a bit deeper. What you're going to do here is go onto your back, bring your right leg up towards your chest with your left knee bent. Bring the right leg over the top. So again, getting into that figure 4. And now the goal is to stretch the back outer hip area. If you need to bring your foot a little bit closer, that's fine. And then both hands will go kind of on the middle of your thigh, pushing down, opening up that movement, increasing the angle on that 4, and then back away. So on and off here, where we're opening up the outer hip. If you're feeling the front hip muscles want to grab and pull or help out a bit, bring your hands down a little bit closer to the upper hip and then push right into that area. And that will help take tension away from the hip flexors and allow you to get more of a stretch in the back. We have 3 more here. 2 more. Last one. And then switch sides. Now you've already been here on the right, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same on this left side. So as you're in that movement, each time as you press down with your hands and open up and get more of the stretch, make sure that you go back to the basics, that you're pulling in your core and we're isolating this movement to the hips. And then also make sure that those front hip muscles are not overactivating or turning on and trying to guard against the stretch. You can see now that I'm going a little bit faster with the back and forth flossing movement of those muscles. And that is more personal preference. It just feels like it needs it more on this side, so I'm taking it a bit faster. As we get into the final 15 seconds, a progression or variation will be to lift your leg, your right leg that's on the ground. That will increase the stretch further. Grab underneath with your right hand to support yourself, and then push down through your left knee, and that'll increase the stretch significantly. We have 5 more seconds here. As you finish the last repetition, flip over so you're face down in almost what will be a push-up position all the way at the bottom so that your whole body is resting on the floor of the mat. When I say push-up position, I mean that your hands are shoulder width apart and they're at the level of your shoulders. From here, we're going to do some spine back bending, which is really important for all of our spines because of how much time we spend in that forward flex position. From here, push up through your hands, let your spine relax and your hips relax. Raise up as high as you can, pause for 1 second, and then back down. That's the movement. We have 10 together. Let's get started. Press all the way up and back down. All the way up, lightly pulling in your core, making sure your glutes are relaxed. Back down. And again. Keep going at this pace, on and off. I don't want compression in your low back. So if you're only feeling it at one spot in your low back, draw on your abdominals, make sure that your glutes and your hips are completely relaxed. If you want to tuck your hips under a bit, you can. Instead of thinking about this as the lower back closing down, think about the front opening up. So what can you do to widen to your chest more, to pull in your core more, to get more of that length on the front side of your body? 2 more here. Last one. Now, for the first time today, grab onto the soft tissue ball, go onto your back, and then you're going to put the ball in the small of your low back, and we're going to hit this on both sides. When you found that position with both your knees bent, rock your knees from side to side, and you're going to roll over the pressure of the ball. Where we're at here is we're going to start on the right side, and then we're about 2 inches up from the outer part of the pelvis there. So this is the SI joint, if you've ever heard that term before. 1 or 2 inches up, and this musculature on the side of your spine. As you're rocking back and forth, I don't want any sort of nervy pains. I really don't want any sharp pains. I want a good muscular feeling that you're working over a tight muscle or just a point of tension through those lower back muscles. If you want to bring the ball up or down an inch because you think you might feel a better sensation, that's completely fine. With this one, you might have to put your hand back there to hold the ball into place, and that's okay too. What often happens is, because these muscles are bigger and a little bit more round than most muscles, what happens is that the ball almost wants to slip off. And so holding your hand against that point can keep it right where you want it and increase the efficacy of this one. In the next few seconds, we'll transition over to the other side because we don't have any other stopping points for this exercise. So just keep going over those low back muscles. And this one, depending on how hard of a ball you have, or if you're using the foam roller by chance, all of those are going to change how much pressure you feel through your low back. So make sure that this movement feels comfortable. Last one here. Bring the ball over to the left side. Find a similar position, and then rotate back and forth again. Oftentimes, because of maybe a more dominant leg, or if when you're sitting down or driving the car, generally we like to position one hip back from the other a bit more. And what that does is it changes how the low back feels too. So as you're rolling over the left side here, bring some awareness to how this feels versus the right side. On this one, I had to bring the ball up 1 or 2 more inches, and I felt a completely different sensation. So remember that you can always change the position of the ball just slightly. We have 3 more here. 2 more. Last one, knees go to the left, knees go to the right. Put the ball aside. Go into an all fours position here. My shoulders are over my hands, hips are over the knees. And with this movement, I want you to look up and watch for 1 second. So we're going to be rocking our hip side to side. And what this does is it opens up the side of the hips. So as I rock towards my left, I'm trying to open up and lengthen this left side. I don't want any compression in the low back. So what you should feel is, as you're opening each side, a stretch going across the oblique side muscles here into the outer hip. Imagine if you were trying to lengthen the rib cage on that side as you open up. I have about probably 50 to 70% of the weight into my hands, which allows my hips to rock back and forth even more. Three more side to side. Last one. And then once again, grab onto the soft tissue ball. Before we were working along the lower back, now we're going to be going up to the middle back, almost to the bottom of the shoulder blade. So we're working on those same muscles that connect from the lower back all the way up to the head and neck. We're just going to be higher up there. So find a point that's about the bottom of your shoulder blades in the back. If you want to go up or down just slightly, we have one position here and then one on the back of the shoulders. Starting on the right side. Once you find that point of tension along the middle back muscles, go back to those forward and backward tilts of the pelvis that we were doing at the beginning. So you're comfortable with that movement now, and then each time as you tuck your hips under, you're going to put more pressure into the ball and then rock off of it. As you're going back and forth, you should feel more tension as you tuck under, and then the tension backs away as you relax into that forward tilt. On and off. If you want to increase the tension a little bit, bring both knees over to your right side a little bit, and then continue. I like this variation because it almost brings the ball a bit towards the outer side of these muscles, and then it fits right into the groove of where the muscles meet the other muscles that are on the inside of the shoulder blade. And I like to think about it as creating space or allowing for some change of pattern because of how we're hitting the muscles between that we're in this junctional space there. 5 more here. 4, 3, last 2, last 1, and then bring the ball over to the left side. Once again, we're in that middle back area, starting off with some front and back tilts of the pelvis, and then we'll get into the modification in just a second. As you're pulling your hips under, draw in your abdominals. So bring your belly button towards your spine, which will naturally roll your hips underneath, creating tension on the ball, and then backing away. If you're ready for the variation, draw both knees over to the left side and then continue with those tucks. On and off. And we have 5 more here. You're likely feeling that doing that forward and backward tilting of the pelvis is more challenging when we're pushing directly into the pressure just on one side. It's really isolating that location. 2 more. Last one. Take the ball back over to the right side, and then now we're hitting the back side of the shoulder. So here is my armpit crease there. I bring it back 2 inches, and then from there, roll over about halfway onto your right side, and then the ball is directly behind that right shoulder. And this already should feel fairly compressive, fairly intense. From here, start with either some small circles or just gentle up and down movements as you're getting used to the pressure on the backside of the shoulder. We're not really adding in any arm movement yet. You can feel free if you want to just hit a little different point of that musculature. But we're going to be going there together as a group in just a second. If you are doing circles one direction, think about going the opposite direction and just see how that changes the sensation. More than anything, what's good about the movement is that as you're going different directions and you're forcing your body to adapt to these different changes, that's what increases the muscle memory, and that's really what allows for the long-term change to happen. A few more seconds here. Find a point that feels good that you want to work through, and then start with some back and forth rotation through the arm. You might be asking yourself, now how is this related to our theme of lower back today, of healthy and strong lower back? These muscles, in addition to the lats, will eventually attach all the way down along your middle back and into the lower back. So a big limitation for many people is tightness in their shoulders that cause their low back to move more or to do more than it needs to. And so we're freeing up the segments above the lower back, which will take stress off the lower back. It's almost an inverse way of thinking about it. 3 more here. 2. Last one. And then switch sides. So now I'm going to the back side of the left shoulder. Starting on my back, rolling my body weight a bit to the left. And then either small circles or just back and forth movements as we're priming those muscles on the back side of the shoulder. I use the term playtime or free time. I think it's really important to, if you don't like the word play, that's fine. But what we need to do is use our imagination a little bit about what your body is capable of, and then also why things might feel a certain way. So we try to draw conclusions way too quickly, in my opinion, about why something is the way it is. And I would suggest almost using this play time as more of a self-reflection to see what's going on side to side, and then potentially what can you do about it to make some of that tension go away. Find that spot that you want to work on and then go back and forth through the arm. And as you can see, I'm maintaining pressure with my opposite hand over the shoulder, over the top of the ball. And that keeps that ball right in place and adds extra pressure. This rotation here might feel a bit different side to side. And that could be for a number of reasons. It could be a hand dominance issue. It could be which arm you use more when you're talking on the telephone. I mean, so many different things can play a role. 3 more here. And as you can see, I just dropped my head down to the ground. If you want to use a pillow or a towel for these, that's completely fine. Last one. And then for our final 2 movements today, we don't need the foam roller or the soft tissue ball. So go into an all-fours position. This is similar to what we were doing a minute ago. But now instead of bringing our hip side to side, from here, this tabletop position, you can see my low back is relatively in that flat or neutral position. And then you're gonna start, this movement is called a bird dog. We're gonna do opposite arm and leg while staying strong and connected from the core. So my left hand reaches out, my right leg reaches out, and then I go back down to the mat. Alternate, going back and forth, left arm, right leg, right arm, left leg. Now, unlike the last time we were here, now in this movement, I don't want any of that accessory or side-to-side movement from your pelvis. Think about pulling in your core, and as you reach your hand long, imagine that if there was a rope attached to one hand and the opposite leg, pulling you as far apart as possible. That's the goal. And as you do that, you'll feel your core engage more. You might even feel a stretch across the hip flexors in the front. And then ideally, you can feel that glute activate and tighten as you kick backwards. 2 more on each side. Last one. Remember to draw in your abdominals. keeping that length. And then we have one more movement today. For this final one, it's almost like a child's pose movement, but your knees are gonna be much further apart. So what that looks like is, normally with child's pose, the knees are about shoulder width apart. For this, I want you to bring your knees as far apart as you can. So it's almost like you're in a wide straddle position. And then with this movement, try to keep your back in that same flat position as you rock all the way backwards. That's gonna increase the stretch across these muscles on the inner thighs. As you're rocking back and forth, feel free to play around with that front and back tilt of the pelvis that we had earlier, and you'll see how it changes the musculature and the stretch of the musculature along the hips. I think we used to view these movements as kind of right or wrong one way or the other. And it is good to train with certain mechanics, but ultimately I want you to be comfortable in multiple positions. So then when you're put in that position in real life, an injury does not occur. We have 3 more here. Each time trying to get the stretch all the way across the upper inner thighs. Last one. And we are done for today. So that is our healthy and strong low back routine. We covered a whole bunch of things, from opening up the hips to strengthening the hips, and then getting your side body moving, and also some core activation. So I hope you enjoyed the routine, and I will see you next time.